today we're going to make a tree in ZBrush, and there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, but we'll go over what I think would be the simplest. If you are going to use ZBrush, you are more than welcome to use Maya and low poly model the tree, but if you wanted to use ZBrush, this is how I would go about. So I just opened ZBrush and closed out of the pop-up and the light box. I'm going to come over here to Simple Brush and choose this option here that says ZSphere. I'm just going to click and drag out in space and hit this edit button up here, or T on the keyboard. So now I can move around holding Alt and clicking out in space. You can zoom out using Control, and I can just hover over my ZSphere and click and draw out another sphere. If I hit W on the keyboard, I can move it. And if I hit Q on the keyboard to go back to the draw option, I can click anywhere in between these and add another sphere. So then I can hit W again and, I can move it. I'm going to go back to draw mode, Q on the keyboard, and just click out on the mesh, W again, and we can start adding some branches. Back to Q, I'm just going to draw out another one and move it. So holding shift will snap to different views. Back to Q, and we can click and draw out. When we let go, I can hit W and move it. If I use E on the keyboard or scale up here, we can scale those. So I can click on any of these. They are actively editable. So I'll go back to Q and start drawing out some more branches. So this is one way that you can go about it, just shifting between Q and W. When I'm happy with this, I can hit A on the keyboard to preview what it's going to look like all merged. So you can swap in and out of that view by hitting A. It's also over here on the right-hand side, Adaptive Skin. When you click A, it's essentially toggling this preview option. And if we go into our geometry and look at Dynamesh, it's also toggled on. So it's just giving you a preview of what it's all going to look like Dynamesh together. When you do, you're ready to accept this, you can go into Adaptive Skin and click on Make Adaptive 3D Skin, and it'll generate that over here. And if we go back up, we can see we have in our tool a new skin ZSphere. You could also, if you're over here, and I just switched back to the one that is my ZSphere. So it still exists if I decide later that, I actually wanted to change one of these. I can make those edits and then redo the accept. I could also come up here and just click on Make Polymesh 3D, and it's also going to do the same thing. So both ways are valid methods. So from here, we can start smoothing out areas and start sculpting on here. It is a bit dense in its poly count, so that's why it's not going to smooth out as well. But before we go and like Zremesh, let's say I wanted to add more branches here. There's a few tools in the brush menu that we can use, these snake hook options. So let's choose snake hook 2, and you'll get this pop-up that says this brush performs best when Sculptress Pro mode is activated. So we'll hit OK, and to turn Sculptress Pro mode on, you just need to come up here and click on that, or you can hit the backslash on the keyboard. So how this works is if we zoom in here and we draw out a branch, we can see it's going to triangulate our mesh. It's basically creating new topology as you bring it out. So let's adjust our brush because I don't want that big of a slope. So bring our focal shift down and then pull this out like that. So this is another method of pulling out branches. I think that there's a lot less control. You're more locked in using this method, but the thing to note about this is that if you push it too hard, it's gonna pull your whole mesh, and then you try to move it and it's gonna like go off the screen, or do something that you don't necessarily want it to do. Or let's say you want to keep like pulling out, you run the risk of like getting some wonky shapes here, but like maybe that is the vibe that you're looking for. I'm gonna undo that. So I usually will pull out like a small section and then continue dragging it with like multiple touches. But this could be really nice for if you have more thinner branches you want to add in. Again, so that's what I mean by you want to be careful about the size of your brush. Where is it pulling from? So those are sort of the main methods. There's also the sphere one. I like the hook because it does like taper off. And then there's also this cactus option over here, which will create a shape that kind of looks like a cactus. But really, it's just an alpha. So if you had a specific like shape that you wanted these branches to have, let's take the star. It will like match that and pull it out. So a lot of options there. Again, the snake hook can kind of have a life of its own, but I'm gonna undo that. So I'm just looking at my silhouette and I can make this bigger to see what we're looking like. And we'll leave it like this. Let's run the Zremesher on this. So Zremesher is the auto retopology in here. I'm going to turn off this Dynamesh option, and I'm going to make sure that I also turn off the Activate Sculptress Pro. And we're going to go to the geometry option down to Zremesher. And let's just leave this at the default just to see what happens. So this is at 8,000 polys now. We went from like 200,000 to 8,000. And actually, I think that this looks pretty okay for an auto retopology. It's never going to be the best. Like here we definitely are going to have some spirals in our mesh. And let's actually do something with the base here before we move on. So I'm going to turn this back on. Okay, so let's run Zremesher on it again. There's also a way that we can try to control the Zremesher. It's the option in the brush menu called ZRemesherGuides. And if you click on that, you can try to tell ZBrush where you want the edge flow to go. So ZRemesherGuide, I'm just going to click and draw out on my mesh. And I'm going to get this like line here. So that's the guide of it. We can make a full ring by holding shift. So I'm just dragging it out and moving my brush, and as soon as I let go, that line appears. So that's me saying I want a edge loop that way, and we can do the same. So I'm holding shift now after I start dragging out, and I can do the same here. So just click, drag out, and then tap shift, keep holding both and drag out, and you can get that circle to appear. And then I can also try to say like, okay, I want one to come up this way. So you can like try to like tell the Zremesher what to do. And I'm gonna move my target polygon count down to like 2.6. So the lower this is, the lower ZBrush is going to try to make your poly count. we can work with this topology. Again, it's not like the cleanest, but it is usable. Yeah, we did lose some detail. I might actually run this again at a little bit higher. I'm gonna turn off the Sculptress Pro, and I'm just gonna inflate some of these branches up a little bit. Let's run Zremesher, and then I'd probably run with something like this. So then the nice thing about working in ZBrush is, you have your low topology one, you can start adding subdivisions, and then you can start sculpting on your mesh to add like finer details so that you can like take this then into Substance Painter and bake your high poly onto your low poly. The rest of this video is just going to be a fast forward of me sculpting. In another video, I will bring this into Maya and we will go over how to add a mesh network to this so that we can add planes for more branches and leaves, all of the foliage that would come on a tree like this.